Here.
Dominique Stewart. Here. Rachel Henderson.
Here.
Dale Dalkey.
Here.
Amber Kirsting.
Here.
Emily Hines.
Here.
Michelle Dupree.
Here.
Angela Wolf.
Here.
Great, we have a quorum. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Oh. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And our mission statement, the school district of the Menomonie area, by embracing the unique needs and using the strengths of our diverse community, is dedicated to preparing all students to become lifelong learners, caring individuals, and responsible citizens. Do we have any proposed changes to the agenda order tonight?
I'd like to suggest one change to the agenda order. Obviously, the big thing we're going to discuss tonight is Downsville, and part of that has to do with staffing. I think we have a closed session to talk about the staffing numbers and the individual contracts. I think to be fully informed going into the Downsville discussion, I think it's important we do that first. So I'd ask that we move the closed session immediately prior to, between 4B and 4C, so that we can understand the exact staffing situation before we discuss Downsville in particular.
Second, Dupree.
Just to understand correctly, you want to put the closed session prior to 4C?
Yes.
Are there any objections to that? Do you have any concerns?
No, go to the library.
Okay, and just to be clear for folks,
Speak up, please.
yes, we're doing our best. I'm not sure how well we've got the microphones amplifying. We are discussing moving the closed session earlier in the agenda so that the board may discuss staffing concerns that could be not things that should not be discussed public. For the purpose of that closed session, the board will move into the library across the hall here. Folks are welcome to stay in their chairs here in the gym or move about if they'd like to during that closed session. I don't actually think we need a full vote on an agenda order change as long as there are no objections. Is that correct? All right. If there's no objections, we'll move on. Next up, we have our highlight on youth.
Thank you, Rachel. In board docs for the public is the April highlight on youth. And in light of the busy agenda we have, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it tonight. But it was another great month in the school district, great activities in each of our 7 schools. Appreciate the work of our staff, and also congratulations to all the students who have been so involved.
Next up, we have student representative communications. It looks like you're on your own tonight.
I'm William Walkowitz. I think I spoke to you the other week.
You can go up to the mic if you'd like.
But so I'm by myself tonight, but we'll get going. So good morning, members of the school board. Thank you for having us and allowing us to share recent events happening within MHS. On March 30th, 2025, Menomonie High School FBLA traveled to Green Bay to participate in the 71st annual FBLA State. The conference, which included over 2,300 FBLA members from the state of Wisconsin, was held at the KI Center. Students participated in presentations, completed exams, designed projects, and participated in the Wisconsin Business Leadership Academy. Participants are as follows. Mobile application development, 7th place, which included Ali and Ali, Ari Long, and Ollinder. Introduction to parliamentary procedures, 8th place, Anna Weber. Digital animation, 9th place, Vista, Marcinet, Jackie Balaz, Kennedy Nolan. Introduction to marketing concepts, Noah Linder. Community service projects, Lainey Newtendorf, Kennedy Nolan. Wisconsin Business Leadership Academy, Tristan England. Gonzalo Escolar, Emmy Gomez, Lainey Newtendorf, and then the Wisconsin State Parliamentary Procedures Office candidate, Amelia Weber. Menomonie High School FBLA chapter received the 3rd place community service award. The Mighty Mustang invite is coming up and will be held on May 9th from 10 to 2 at the high school sports complex. It is an opportunity for our middle school and high school students with disabilities to participate in a varsity-style track meet against other schools from the area and the BRC. Please stop by if you're able and cheer on our adaptive track team. 4 band students auditioned into the Wisconsin School Music Association's Honors Band, equivalent to All-State. Cody Chen for the trombone and jazz ensemble. Weston in the bassoon and orchestra, Amelia, the bass clarinet and band, Harrison Davis, the clarinet and band, and then the jazz ensemble performed Monday evening, April 7th at the Naval Tanner for a near sold-out concert with professional musicians Sue Orfield on the saxophone and Tyler Lustig on the piano. The group will also be opening for the Chippewa Valley Jazz Orchestra at the Pablo Center in Eau Claire on Friday, April 25th. Lastly, their annual Spring Swing Dance is Saturday, May 10th. The final band concert of the year is May 14th at 7 p.m. in the high school auditorium. Students from the anatomy and physiology will be participating in Live from the Heart this week. They will be observing a live open heart surgery and have the opportunity to interact with all of the medical staff during the procedure. And then the second annual Menomonie High School Art Show is quickly approaching. The art show will take place in the MHS Gym on Saturday, May 10th from 5 to 7 p.m. Every student who took art this year will have at least one piece of artwork on display. Make sure to come check out the art show and also listen to the MHS Jazz Ensemble during their spring swing. The indoor track season was an extreme success for the boys and girls. There were 8 new records set, including Lauren McCullough in the 800 meter and the 1600 meter, Izzy Whitbaum in the pole vault, Nolan Bean in the 55 meter hurdles, and a team of Evan Olson, Peter Semino, Owen Pelzel, and Luke Bay in the distance medley relay. The team of Bree Barfin, Addie Schuler, Bella Drake, and Lauren McCullough in the 4x400, 4x800, and the distance medley relays. There were also 9 All-American awards earned from the National Coaches Association. Those included Lauren McCullough in the 800 and 1600 meter, Bree Barfin in the 800 meter, Nolan Bean in the hurdles, Jay Berg in the high jump, and then the 4 members of the girls' distance medley relay. Menomonie completed the Wisconsin Host of State competition. They placed in the top 15 in their categories and were able to attend state. It was very successful, and there were also sessions for students to learn more about their areas. Science Olympiad wrapped up their season at the Wisconsin State Science Olympiad Championship this past week held at UW Stone. The team was in 3rd place behind champions Marquette University and runner-up Madison West. The Mustang team medaled in 15 individual events and were able to meet their season goal of 3rd place at this year's meet. Grant Burns and Luke Ray competed as back-to-back state champs in geocaching. And the JV team was also the 3rd place JV team in the state, narrowly behind Marquette and Madison. So Science Olympiad has a bright future at MHS. Over spring break, concert chorus traveled to New York City to tour Manhattan to see a Broadway show and perform at the famous Carnegie Hall under the director of Professor Dr. Ryan Pearson and Dr. Priscilla Barber. All 3 choirs will be performing at the high school on Thursday, April 17th throughout the day for and clinics from the WSMA judges. 4 of our chorus students will receive top ratings at the recent solo and ensemble festival and have qualified for state. Rachel Hintzman, Julia Prognell, Lucy Dolan, and Amelia Freeman for classical solos, and then Amelia Freeman for music theater solo as well. They will be participating at the state festival in UW Eau Claire on May 30th. The final concert choir will be May 21st at 7 p.m. This year, our council is sponsoring a new event, Can VRC. For the past couple of weeks, school across the VRC have been collecting cans for food banks. DECA has 2 students that are heading to nationals in Florida at the end of the month. Max Brewer and Max Yeager will be presenting on the retail price of the school business enterprise, or the school store. Olivia Rubenzer and Elena Jean will be heading down to state in Sheboygan to compete at the Junior Achievement Titan Challenge on May 1st. If they do well in this event, they will qualify for nationals in Atlanta in June. Health Science 1 had a guest speaker, Megan from CBTC this week, giving students a hands-on experience to explore the surgical tech profession. This past week at MHS, the MHS forensics team had traveled to Madison to compete at the state forensics tournament. Every member of the team qualified for state, and students got to explore the Capitol, State Street, and also got to perform their pieces at the UW-Madison campus. It was a very successful weekend. That's all we have for today. Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much for being here. Go ahead, Dale.
We didn't have any accommodations today, but a week ago last Saturday, I had the opportunity to go to Madison to be a part of the induction of Jay Stanley into the Wisconsin State Football Coaches Hall of Fame. This is our 3rd football coach who's been inducted into the Hall of Fame, and it's really quite the honor.
Thank you for sharing. I'm glad you were able to be there. Thanks so much to our student representatives for being here tonight. It's really wonderful to hear, once again, every month, everything that you have to share. So, thanks for being here. And next up, we have community communications. This is a time to air concerns and express your opinion on issues. There should be no negative personal attacks against any individuals, including staff, board members, or administrators. The opinions, beliefs, and viewpoints expressed by the various speakers do not necessarily reflect the opinions, beliefs, or viewpoints of individual board members, the board as a whole, or the school district of the Menomonie area, nor do they necessarily reflect the policies of the SDMA. We have 7 speakers tonight. Folks can come up to this microphone here in the center if you're comfortable doing so as I call your name. Each speaker will have 3 minutes. First up, we have Josie Pillman. At your discretion.
My name is Josie Tillman, and I'm from Nat, which is in the school district. I first want to congratulate Dominique and Abe and Rachel on their election to the school board. Ooh, okay. Try to, should I put this up higher, maybe? There. Is that better? Okay. So, members of the board and Dr. Zadowski, I have been told by various parents or community members that it is becoming much more difficult to keep order in the classroom. Somehow our precious little children are all over the teacher, even in first grade. Even some have said in 2-year-old daycares before they come to our elementary schools. The habits are already formed. So what is happening? How can an educator teach reading, writing, and arithmetic when the classroom is in complete disorder? Because a portion of the children are disrespecting and disobeying the teacher. The foundation of an orderly classroom is the application of discipline. Do our teachers have this tool? They need it. In the olden days, some kind of corporal punishment was used for young children when a stick behind the woodshed or a belt or a paddle. The discipline was applied likely by the principal, out of sight but not earshot of the fellow peers. It was applied swiftly, causing pain but not injury. It was not applied in anger, and it was only applied for proper reasons. Disrespect or disobedience of authorities, also cruelty to another. Children need the same now as they did then. It keeps things orderly. Can you still hear me? Today, many children arrive at the school untrained by their parents. The parents do not understand the harm this does to little children. Now the teachers are expected to train the children without the appropriate tools. It is like trying to teach while wearing a pair of handcuffs. What tools do our teachers have to bring order into the classroom? Without order, the obedient, compliant students suffer, along with the non-compliant, rowdy few. Grades are lowered, teachers are distressed, and students struggle to learn. I remember as a mom with the younger age group when I knew a child was begging for some decisive discipline, pushing boundaries and testing. Sometimes in my misplaced empathy, I kept avoiding applying proper discipline. My warnings kept escalating, my tone got harsh, my volume raised, the whole atmosphere was angry and discordant. I remember. Finally, the discipline happened when by mom or dad, surprisingly quickly, the storm clouds fled. Peace replaced the loud anger, the sun came out, order was restored to the whole household. Somehow everyone knew that discipline was the right kind of love. The little child inherently knew that his mom and dad loved him. Thank you.
Our next speaker tonight is Wyatt Kreutzer.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. I live at 330th Avenue, just north of Downsville here, in the town of Dunn. The agenda, to me, a lot of the stuff that's been coming out over the last couple months has been already a decision made. The way it's been written, the way it's been portrayed, the way it's been given to us, the decision has already been made. Why has there not been brought, or why has this been brought up and pushed so speedily? These types of decisions need more time to be discussed, projections to be done, questions to be asked and answered. My father was an elected member of this Board of Education for 9 years. I was a member of this board as the student council representative for 2 years. There were major decisions that were made during the time of my father. They were very controversial decisions at that point in time. Nothing was ever done this expedited. It took time. It took community effort. If the decreasing attendance numbers have been an ongoing thing, where has the information been? Where has the planning been? Where has the community involvement been? Why are there so many accounts? I'm sorry, wrong one. If Oak Lawn and River Heights are full of current students, where are the new students supposed to go from this school? Apparently, if we're to close Downsville for the year, you can afford to add on to Oak Lawn Elementary. Why, when we have a school here? When this is a great school? We have great teachers, we have great students, we have great staff, we have a great community that supports this school. If you close Downsville and send the students into town, there's talk that there's not enough space at Oak Lawn, and you will have to move kids out of classrooms to create new classrooms for the incoming kids or the incoming influx of students. There's talk that that's the severely challenged kids. You're going to move them into the pods and do a common space? That doesn't sound like a good idea. I don't know that this is true, but this is what's been being talked about in the community. Have you talked to those parents about that? That seems like it's going to be a big deal if that comes out. Downsville wouldn't have the teacher shortage problem that you talk about if there probably wasn't an issue with telling them there may not be a job or telling them they're closing the school.
I'm sorry, that's time.
Thank you for your
very
time.
much. Next up, we have Jane. Next up, we have Jane Hewlett.
Hello, my name is Jane Hewlett, and I was a teacher at Downsville for 29 years. I love teaching here. Our children were students here. This school was a safe and nurturing place for them. Being a one-section school meant that teachers still had daily connections with our children beyond the year that they had them in their own classroom. They enjoyed many opportunities to be out in the Downsville community because this small community partnered in their education. Our children formed lifetime friendships because the same students were together K through 5. This type of safety net and the broadening opportunities for the students at Downsville School will be lost if their classes are divided into 3 schools far from where they live. As I drove from the Downsville area to Knapp for the last school board meeting, I couldn't imagine busing kids all that way. I'm also very concerned about the impact of adding 70-plus students to classes in River Heights, Oak Lawn, and Knapp. Throughout the district, classes are experiencing alarming numbers of what I've heard called dysregulated students, students who are unable to control their emotional responses. In talking to some of the strongest teachers in the district, I've heard less of, "I love my job," or "I have a wonderful class this year," but more often a sad look saying, "You wouldn't believe what teaching is like now." I counsel my students during my lunch break, and there are so many student needs. As I look at the preliminary class sizes for Oak Lawn and River Heights for the 2025-2026 school year, I saw reassuring numbers of 17 to 25 students per classroom. But then I thought, this is before any students from Downsville have been added. What would be the impact of adding 3, 4, 5, or more students to classrooms already experiencing an uptick in behavioral issues? What brought us all here today was projected kindergarten with only 5 students. Downsville staff would not have put in for transfers if this had not come up. Downsville teachers have always had the choice to transfer into a town school, but that rarely happens. One teacher that transferred into Downsville later called it her dream job. I do daycare in my home, another dream job. Some years I've had 5 kids. Those kids deserve my best attention, which included nurturing their interests, meeting their emotional needs, and giving them quality learning experiences, just like a kindergarten teacher with 5 kids would do. I know it's not the norm, maybe even considered a ridiculous idea, but what would be the harm? Thank you.
Brian,
Can you help her?
do you want to say something?
I don't.
Okay.
Not going
Hi,
to
I'm Hadley. I am a 4th grader here at Downsville. I think Downsville Elementary should stay open because you just make the best friendships here that will last forever. And the teachers are amazing, and when you get to know your teacher really well, you connect a bond, and that bond will never ever go away from you. And the reason you get those bonds is because you have small classes. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Next up, we have Gary Soul, and just so you can prepare, after that is Jeff Markham.
I don't have that much to say, but like everybody else, I was born and raised here, like I met at the last meeting. But one of my concerns is, and several people back there is, I live out in the country, and one side of the road is Menomonie, the other side is Durand. And they're getting drove to Durand, that's a lot farther than Menomonie. So I don't know how that makes sense to have to drive another 3-4 extra miles to Durand instead of going to Menomonie, how that can be efficient for the school boards or bus companies to spend the gas and drive that much farther every day, year after year. So I'd like to have somebody explain how that works. That's all.
Thank you. Jeff Markham.
Can I surrender my time to this young lady?
Does she already have a sheet up here?
I just turned it in.
Okay, then I would like to go in order that they were turned in, if I may. Okay. I would prefer to, if the person in question has a sheet in here, I would prefer to go in the order that I have the sheets right now. Thank you.
Do you want to take another one?
That's fine.
Hi, my name is Jeff Markham. I also am from this community. I also have a situation where on one side of the road we have Menomonie, the other side we have Durand. I don't know about the efficiency of the way the schooling is set up, but I do know that like they're out in the old Louisville school area, which is where Gary is talking about. That's a thriving, building up community there, and there's a lot of young kids coming. We have some of that same thing happening around here. And these young families moved here, built here, are having kids here, hoping to send their kids to school here. And now it seems like that's not going to happen. And I guess if kids can be bused from here to Menomonie, then I would think kids could be bused from Menomonie to here. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Next up, we have Sherry Larson, and then following that is William Giese, just to be prepared.
Hi, I'm Sherry Larson. I am a parent of 4 alumni from the Menomonie School District. They attended Knapp Elementary. and I am a former school counselor of Knapp and Downsville and loved my time here. I am also in my 10th year as a parent coach and youth coach. So I guess I just really want to bring my social emotional expertise to this board and talk about how important it is for our kids. And I want to thank you guys, because I know this has been a social and emotional situation for all of you. And thank you, because I voted for many of you, you know. So I know it's emotional. I am excited to hear the community back here already problem solving, right? They want to try to fix this. And that's part of our strength in the Knapp and Downsville area. These small schools all take on lots of hats. I know there's a staffing issue, and I'm a strength coach as well, and I want to turn that into a strength. I want Stacy Lee to build a team here that wants to stay for 29 and 30 years like they have in the past. So I see this as an opportunity. I know 5 kindergartners, I'm realistic about that, is not efficient for our district as a whole, but we are creative and we hire phenomenal staff, and we've got people behind me that are ready to problem solve this. And I will volunteer for a task team if we want to talk about what we can do to support the lower class sizes. So I know some of the veteran teachers that are here. I know there's Knapp parents here, because there's a domino effect. Knapp and Downsville are pretty tight. We're partner schools, we share staff, and there's fear behind all of that. So that social emotional part, the lifelong learners, caring individuals, and responsible citizens. We are the Menomonie area part, Knapp and Downsville. We feed into that middle school and bring different experiences. I remember a student telling me, Mrs. Larson, I brought a friend home from the middle school and they got to see us milk a cow. They'd never seen that before. Can you believe that? And we have the community building ice skates on our playground, and parents volunteering to put skates on kids so they can do that. I know we haven't had snow, so they funded the kids to go to Finetti Ice Rink, right? And Knapp has sledding on their playground, right? Because they can't do an ice rink in that community. But everybody brings that into the Menomonie area, and it's rich, and it's wonderful. And thank you. Thank you.
Next up, we have William Giese. I hope I'm saying that right. I apologize if not. And then following to be prepared is Emily Weiss.
Good evening. My name's Bill Giese. I live at N2865 630th Street, about 3 miles east of here. Just would like to, first of all, thank you all for your job you do as school board members. I know it's a thankless job. I've been an educator for 35 plus years. Cut my teeth here right at Downsville Elementary in a classroom right back in that wall. And one of the things I learned back then is that Downsville is a community and a family. And when you talk about closing this family's house, it's going to have a tremendous impact, negative impact on Downsville. So I know it's a tough decision. I know enrollment numbers are down, but having been experienced, I know that those are cyclical and they will come up. And as you see, all these people here have a lot of young children and they would like to go to school at Downsville Elementary. Please give them that chance. Thank you.
Next up, Emily Weiss, followed by Sherry Laurent.
Hi, my name is Emily Weiss, and I want to talk about what my opinion is in trust and running the school district as a business. I feel that the school district of Menomonie needs to be operated more like a business. And in order to do that, I think that someone from this school district needs to be more a part of the community, the county. There's meetings, I believe it's the Dunn County Economic Development, where everything that's going on in the community is discussed. And I believe the city's there, the county's there, the township boards are there, the mayor is there, the chancellor's there. Everybody, every big tax-paying entity is there except the school district. How do you know what's going on in your area? How can you make good, solid decisions about the change in the population here and there? Did you know that there's 200 plus units being built right now, and they're not all done, right by the Oak Lawn School? Plus there's a couple other little 12-plexes being done as well. There are many of them are 3-bedroom, 2-baths. I know, being in the real estate business for 35 years, you have a 3-bedroom apartment, it's not going to be 2 adults. Where are you going to put all those children coming into Oak Lawn? Where are you going to put them? Then also, 41 acres was just sold to a large company. It's land just north of Ellsworth Cheese. There's all kinds of speculation as what it's going to be. Some say a distribution center. Some say, geez, we don't know. It's an undisclosed entity. They will bring in, I don't know how many people that Walmart Distribution employs, but if it's a distribution center, it's going to employ a lot of people. Where are you going to put them when they move in, have children that have to go to school? Where are you going to put them? When did you find out that there's like 230 some acres in negotiation right now just east of B? That means, huh? I got his too, though. That's because he was told he had to.
I never told him he had to. I told him I had your name in here already. We understand.
That's one more example of not knowing what's going on.
Hello, that's my noisy family back there, but they are the kids that are hopefully going to go to Downsville School. I'm Sherry. I own the Creamery and Boutique along with my husband Adam and our 2 young kids. Based on the agenda for this evening that states approve closing the school, approve new attendance, approve staffing plan, I kind of feel like maybe all of our comments are a moot point, but I'm going to say this anyway. I agree with everything that everybody else has said. I'm going to take a little bit different approach. Tonight, we're not just discussing a building. You get to decide on the future of a growing community. So before you vote, please ask yourselves, are we reacting to short-term enrollment numbers, or are we ready to invest in the long-term potential of a rural community that's showing real signs of growth and commitment from young families and businesses? According to Google, if a community is experiencing population decline or an aging population, reversing these trends requires addressing issues like attracting younger residents, check, creating job opportunities, check, and ensuring access to services like healthcare and education, check. And then you need to give it time. There's no magic number of years to revive a community, but in the last 10 years, businesses have opened and young people have moved here. I've mentioned before that I'm part of a mom's group in Downsville, and we all have children under the age of 3. Also an example of a revival, Downsville Day last year was crazy busy, and I have to believe that that's a true testament to what this little town is. And we even have a new Downsville Day committee headed by many of these young families. So we've definitely seen a shift in population and a desire for growth from this younger community. Can you stand still? Okay. All that to say, if you choose to vote to close the school, then you're doing a disservice to this entire community, businesses, family, and most importantly, the children. If you choose to vote to close the school, I just pray that the trajectory of our town does not decline so that I can keep telling everyone who walks into the boutique that this is an oddly quaint, happening little town. With your seemingly simple vote tonight, you could quite literally change the course of this town for years to come. It's not too late to vote to keep it open. Give it more time. Thank you. Hi, my name is Katie Markham. My dad spoke earlier. I was a student here. I had Mr. Giese as my 5th grade teacher. I had Mrs. Hewlett. One thing I will say is I drive past this building to and from work every single day. I look on the playground, I see the kids, brings back memories every single time. Being in a small school made a huge difference for me as a student. I really struggled with reading, writing, especially math, still do. But I had very dedicated teachers who, in this smaller school, allowed me to be in a small room, few other students, one-on-one lessons that made all the difference in my ability to move into middle school and high school and into college. Not only that, everyone is talking about being part of the community, which is something that definitely has changed a lot for me over the years as well. I miss Downsville. I miss having the smaller local schools. I remember going to middle school and being terrified because all of a sudden I went from one hallway to multiple. My friends and I were split up. They were in one pod, I was in another because there was just too many of us. And it was a struggle to try and maintain those friendships, but we made it work because we wanted to stay in each other's lives. Smaller schools like this really do make a difference, and I don't want to see this place go. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much to everybody who took the time to speak. Unfortunately, now we are moving on to revenue and expenditure reports for the month ended of March 2025. Sorry.
Right, I'll start as usual with the revenue report. So this month's revenue report shows a notable increase both in levy deposits and also equalization aid compared to the February numbers. In addition, we received some Title I and Title IV claims for reimbursement. Those also should be increasing in the coming months as well. Those will be expected to be deposited in the coming weeks. The expense by object report really didn't reflect any unusual activity when compared with other years, and it's been pretty consistent with previous months' reports as well, and aligns with trends that I've addressed in earlier reports, so not too much to report there. And then lastly was the expense by function. I know last time there was a question about function 490000, and that is, basically that's an entry that represents a property tax chargeback. So this occurs when a township or municipality is unable to collect taxes, property taxes, a portion of those property taxes. So it results in a chargeback to the district. The district can recover this amount in following fiscal years. There's actually a line in the revenue worksheet which allows districts to claim back those chargebacks. It's a budget item that's really hard to accurately make. 2,500 is certainly not unusual because that's what was budgeted this year, the 2,500. That was not unusual for previous years, but this year's total of 8,600 was unusual, and so therefore you have that discrepancy in that line item. So I can make a future budget revision in the near future to accommodate that, and so plan to do that soon.
Is that something that's predictable, or?
It really isn't,
Yeah.
because it's just, if they have problems collecting those taxes, it's just charged back to the district, and then again, we can claim that the next year.
Does anyone have additional questions for Eric on the revenue and expense reports? All right. Thank you very much. Next, we have our monthly employment report for March of 2025. I'd like to ask folks, if you do want to have conversations, you're welcome to step out into the hallway and come back, but to please keep conversation in the room, to please not have conversation in the room. The monthly employment report is included here. It's just for board information. Does anyone have any questions or comments on the monthly employment report? All right, seeing none, we can move on to the consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Hines moves. Second.
All right, motion by Emily, second by Dominique. Our consent agenda tonight includes minutes from our regular board meeting of March 10th, our special board meeting of March 24th, financial reports, general fund checks in the amount of $1,883,871, and cash receipts in the amount of $3,928,557 for March. Donations, we have several donations exceeding $1,000 for the month of March, including $3,562 in donations from community members and organizations for the middle school 7th grade, $5,216 for the in showcase fundraiser donations for the middle school music department, $3,977 in donations from the Wakanda PTO, which includes kindergarten, 3rd grade, and 5th grade field trips, and $2,631 donated by community members and organizations to the School Nutrition Angel Fund. Any questions or discussion on the consent agenda?
I would like to point out something.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Board members, as part of the consent agenda, you can see the rolling 12-month average report for the self-insured health insurance plan. And I'm very pleased to share that the changes that were made to the insurance plan and a number of other factors have really improved our position in terms of health insurance. And I don't want to spend too much time on it tonight, but I know you've all been very interested in health insurance costs. But the Health Insurance Committee for the school district, along with our HR department and business department, with the recommendations of adopting a new plan design with the high deductible health plan, and then also working on ways to minimize our health insurance costs, have really paid off. And you can see that we're on a much better trend to have a sustainable health package for all the employees in the school district.
Thank you. Any questions about the 12-month rolling average or anything else on the consent agenda? All right, seeing none, let's vote. And motion passes unanimously. Next up, we have the personnel consent agenda. We have 2 resignations and 2 requests to hire. I'll entertain a motion to approve the personnel consent agenda.
So move. Amy. Second.
All right, motion by Amy, second by Angie. Now, 2 resignations and 2 requests to hire. Any questions or discussion here? All right, seeing none, let's vote. All right, and motion passes unanimously. On to our action agenda. First up, we have approval of the new WIAA sport request for girls wrestling. I'll entertain a motion.
So move. Second.
All right, a motion by Dominique, second by Michelle. I I assume there's no changes to this proposal from what we discussed at the last meeting. Does anyone have questions or discussion regarding the addition of girls wrestling for the high school sports? Great, let's vote. And motion passes unanimously. Next up, we have approve the updates to the school nutrition policy. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
All right, motion by Amber, second by Michelle. Stacy's here tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. Are there any changes or updates that we're looking at compared to what we saw last time? All right, we had a great discussion on these updates last time. Any questions or discussion? All right, seeing none, let's vote. All right, motion passes unanimously. So at this stage in the agenda is where we have moved to put the closed session. And again, to clarify for folks in the room, this is so that the board may discuss staffing and personnel concerns in a private setting. So at this point, the board will move into the library to move into closed session. I'd ask if folks could clear the doorway so that we can get out.
I would remind the board that you cannot discuss the closing of the school in closed session.
Excuse me, there is no intention to discuss closing. You're out of order, I'm sorry.
We need a motion.
To move into closed session?
Yeah,
But we would move that in the library once we leave the room.
I would do it here.
Okay, Joe would like us to take a vote to move into closed session here before we move.
Oh, that makes sense.
Okay.
All right, we're taking roll call, or not roll call, but actually.
Need a motion.
Sorry, we do need a motion to move into closed session.
I move to move into closed session for the purpose of discussing staff contracts.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Hines, second.
Thank you. Dale,
Yes.
Amy,
So we're voting to move into the library? Yes.
Emily,
Yes.
Dominique, yes, Rachel,
Yes.
Abe,
Yes.
Amber,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Angie.
Yes.
If folks would let us get out the door. We are not trying to hide anything. We want to be able to discuss staffing contracts, and we will come back to make our vote.
options are with your children. Is you can go to Nap, you can go to River Heights, you can go to Oaklawn, okay? At the end of April, I'm not sure the exact date, there is a deadline about being able to transfer to another school district entirely. If you're thinking that you're going to go to Elmwood or you're thinking you're going to go to Durand, you need to be paying attention. You need to make calls, find out what those deadlines are, because that door is going to close on you, okay? And the other thing is there is a school choice deadline, and I know there are a lot of people don't like school choice, okay? But that's a free private school education, okay? Now, that deadline is Thursday. When Friday comes, you will not have that option. I think it's something like 260% over the poverty line is the financial limit on that. And it's adjusted gross, and you can even stick money into an IRA to even bring that down a little, okay? In Menomonie, you're probably not going to get into Summit, okay? I think they've got a long waiting list. And you may or may, there's usually a few spots open at the Lutheran choice option. There's seats at the Catholic school, okay? And there's enough so that if you've got a buddy that you want your kid to go with, there's probably room for both of them, okay? I'm not saying you should do this. I'm not an expert, but I want you to know if you're not paying attention, Friday your options go down. And I have flyers if anybody wants them. Thank you.
I also want to add that Summit Academy has retired professional volunteers to help there as well. I think you can take your vouchers there, can't you? I mean, isn't there like vouchers of $11 or I don't know, whatever, $1,000 if you choose to go to a private school? I want to read one thing that I was going to speak about, but was cut off. Joseph Kowski told me on March 24th, that's not a month ago. Oh. March 24th, that's not a month ago. He told me that closing Downsville School would save $500,000 a year. I asked him for the supporting documentation for that number. He said, and I quote, just a rough estimate in my head. That was March 24th. This is the enrollment projections Joe gave me. It dips down to the bottom this year, and at that point further goes up by quite a bit. Why aren't they talking about that? And this is about all the new industry in town and all the people moving into Menomonie or the county, but the school district overall. Why aren't they talking about that? I rest my case.
Second.
All right, motion by Abe, second by Angie.
Dale.
Yes.
Amy.
Yes.
Emily. Yes. Dominique. Yes. Rachel.
Yes.
Abe.
Yes.
Amber.
Yes.
Michelle.
Yes.
Angie.
Yes.
Great, thank you very much. And again, just to clarify, this was to allow the board to discuss confidential staffing questions, to be able to ask those of our administrative team before we move on to continuing this discussion in open session. So we do, as we move on to action agenda item C, it is appropriate now at this point to call for a motion.
All right. With a heavy heart and for the sake of discussion at least, I move to approve the recommendation of the administrative team on the Downsville Elementary School closing with one minor addendum. There are two items here. One is to close Downsville as item 1. The second is to create a committee as item 2. Item 2 involves 4 considerations for future work. One is school district demographics, one is programming, C is staffing, and D is finances. I'd like to add a 5th, E, which is community needs, to support, to support and complement community services of importance to Southern Dunn County, Downsville, and surrounding townships. So that the community needs are part of that discussion. As you know, if there's going to be a committee to look forward at future plans, the community needs have to be part of that.
All right, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, motion by Abe, second by Angie. So now we can move into discussion. The motion before us is to approve the recommendations of the board, or the recommendations of the superintendent. To be clear, this is a board decision, but the board has a limited power to hire and make operational decisions. So we have a recommendation that's come from Dr. Sadowski. Do you want to summarize your recommendation?
Yeah, I mean, we shared it with the public, so everyone hopefully had a chance to see it. I know it was also shared on social media. Like I said when we had the parents meeting in March, closing an elementary school is not something that any of us want to do. It's hard, and I do really value our smaller schools, and I think there are great things, and it was wonderful to hear those things tonight. But I do think when we look at the demographics of our school district, when we look at the enrollment, when we look at the enrollment projections, when we look at our operating capacity right now in town and what it would be in the future, and we look, and most importantly, we look at the educational experience with highly qualified educators for the kids right here in Downsville, I want to make sure that all of these kids can get a chance to have a high-quality education. And to do that, I think this recommendation is what has to happen. I do think there's terrific opportunity, and I really think that the second part of the recommendation that Abe mentioned about getting the committee together and coming up with something for this building that's going to educate kids and serve the needs of the school district, but I also love what Abe said about also meeting the needs of the community. That can be done. And it was really encouraging to hear some of the public comments about people wanting to solve problems and wanting to have input. We can do this. But when we look at the staffing situation, when we look at the student enrollment, unfortunately, I think this recommendation is the best thing to do right now.
Questions for Joe or discussion on the recommendation?
I have a comment about why I made the motion. There were a lot of really beautiful things said about Downsville. Excuse me. Looking at the staffing situation we're facing, I cannot look you in the eye and guarantee that we can promise that experience in the future next year, because we won't have the people in the building to do it.
They wouldn't have left.
Let me finish. We know that Downsville enrollment has been decreasing for a decade, and I personally thought we had another year or two to work it out. We could have predicted more carefully, and we should have had a plan to deal with it. Downsville's had high staff turnover for many years. We could have planned new programming, and we should have recruited experienced teachers with the explicit goal of making Downsville a recruiting tool for our district. A lot of people have recommended through email, through phone calls, wait a year and figure it out. We should have done that a year ago. That's on us. And right now we're at a position where I don't see a way out, where we can guarantee that in August, kids in this building will have the experience they deserve. So we care very deeply about the kids in this school, about this community, and we're trying to keep things together so those kids have what they need in the fall. Right now, to me, the numbers don't work out. And we've looked at it very carefully. All of us, I'm sure, have lost many nights of sleep over looking over the details, trying to figure out ways around this. Sometimes, you know, it's a, we're almost literally a day late and a dollar short, you know? I don't know what else to say.
I would agree with Abe. I'll try to yell so everyone can hear. The thing I struggle with the most is it's clear that the community and us want to collaborate to keep Downsville open because it is a huge benefit to this community. In some ways, maybe a staple, like a very important part. And my struggle is, as Abe mentioned, can we give the students next year a valuable school experience with a new staff? And how do I balance that against what it looks like to transition them out of the school and then potentially bring kids back? I know that kids are resilient, often more resilient than we should make them. And I believe that they'll be okay whatever we do, but I wonder about my duty. I tend to be a person who is maybe toxically optimistic. So to me, I'm like, it feels like there's time to staff this building. But the question is, what does that staffing look like? What does it look like to put in tons of new teachers in a building where they don't have a teacher of the same grade level right next door to get help when they need it? That's a really difficult thing to balance, and I agree with Abe that this is on us. This is when we discussed ideas of like how can we get more at Downsville a year ago or 2 years ago when we discussed the ideas of magnet schools and stuff, that would have been the time to dive in. And now we're sort of dealing with the consequences of not being proactive enough. So I totally take that. I hope that everyone knows that this is not a situation, I don't normally speak for the board, but I'm pretty sure this is not a situation where any of the 9 of us just want to close a school. That's just what I have to say. I don't have anything else at the moment. I do have one thing, actually. I really appreciate that everyone is here because I believe in the power of people doing what they can do. I'm so grateful to everyone who spoke tonight because I know that that's not always easy either. So I do want to say thank you for that. Thank you to everyone who has shared their comments and experiences as well.
I just wanted to add a comment too about staffing of new staff and faculty. I'm a former third grade teacher, and I can remember when I started years and years ago, if I didn't have my collaborative grade level partner, I would have been absolutely lost. And I just want to make sure that whatever decision, whatever we decide, that if we are able to staff Downsville, that we're providing the appropriate mentorship support for those teachers, even if they're freshly out of school. But ultimately, we're here to make a decision for our students, right? And what's best for them. I believe her name was Emily that made the comment about running the district like a business. And just an observation, public education, the teaching profession in general has been under deep scrutiny over the last many years. And I feel that there's an incredible uncertainty with public education funding, particularly at the state and national levels. And so it's something when we're looking at the larger ecosystem of our school district and having Downsville part of that, we need to be careful in making those decisions, weighing them carefully, because there's so much funding that is up in the air to support public education in general.
Part of the motion was about, making a committee to plan next steps. I think that, almost everyone who has contacted us, or at least contacted me, I should say, I can't speak for anyone else, but I assume to everyone, has had lots of really great ideas about what Downsville could be. Like Dominic said, a year ago, 2 years ago, I remember in 2023 having conversations about, wouldn't it be cool if Downsville could become an art and STEAM magnet school? Wouldn't it be cool if it could become an agricultural and environmental magnet school? Wouldn't it be great if we had a 4K site in Downsville and could expand those services? Those are all great ideas. And I think those are things we ought to pursue with, community driving that decision. A little bit of history. I mean, a great frustrating irony here is that we are in the middle of a strategic planning process. And I personally was hoping that strategic planning process would lead organically to suggestions like that from the community, that then we could use the strategic plan as a way to drive that over the next 2 to 3 years. The staffing crisis came to a head earlier in a way that was more rapid and more severe, I think, than anyone anticipated. And we always know there's going to be turnover of teachers, but the idea of essentially the entire staff looking at other options all at the same time was more of a challenge than I think was anticipated. And again, lack of that prediction is on us. But I think that idea of taking this, building this community, and taking the time to make a plan for its future. It's a great building. There's great people here. Taking the time to make that plan is something that we absolutely must do. And that's part of this motion. That is, in some sense, as many people have said, that's different than this short-term staffing crisis. But the short-term staffing crisis I think, is very real, and I don't see a way around it.
I will add a little bit to that, Abe. I'm just thinking about my own years in education and being in education for 33 years, much of which was at River Heights and then on the district level as the district math coach. And there's a lot of love in this room for Downsville School and for every school in our district. I worked at every one of them. This is, I think I just need people to understand that this is a very pro-Downsville board. This wasn't done with any stone left unturned. Our initial goal when we began this whole discussion was that what can we do to beef up the numbers in kindergarten? That's where we started. And it just led to this winding road. And I also used to run the mentor program for all new teachers in the whole district of Menomonie. So I have a very keen understanding of where new teachers are, even if they have 5 years of experience and they come to a new district. You don't really become a teacher until 5 years in, 10 years, you get better every year. And in the beginning years, you lean heavily on those around you. So my greatest concern is putting staffing in this building with very little experience and no one right here on site to support them in their own grade level. It's critical for new teachers to have that safety net. And we have had situations where we've had to assign staff in other buildings to mentor someone in a different building. And it's not a good situation. It's very difficult on the new teacher. I'm concerned about what the kids of Downsville deserve along the lines of a quality education. I also am concerned about the staffing turnover, especially what's happened in the last 5 years at Downsville and all of the turnover. Our long-standing teachers that stayed for decades and decades and decades, none of them are still here. They've all retired. Kids right now that go into teaching, adults right now that go into teaching need collaboration. And with experienced teachers in the building at the helm, like we've had in the past, and we have extraordinary teachers. We have extraordinary teachers here now. It's a young staff. If they aren't here and we're filling the whole school with all new educators, and nobody with that experience is here, that it's just unfair to our kids. So I'm trying to look at this in a broader way, with my heart also being in this building. Go ahead.
I respect my fellow board members for their ideas and what they've said. I too am concerned about staffing, but I'm also optimistic, but I'm more optimistic in a different way. I think that given what's coming out maybe of our universities and so forth, I just feel like we could make a difference and that we could have good teachers here. I just feel like that could happen. It is a concern. I hear the concerns of my fellow board members. But I also have some other ideas that have come up, and I maybe should have brought these up sooner, but a lot of them just came to me today. But one idea that was brought up to me was something about maybe doing a pilot 5K program, kindergarten program, or 4K for that matter, in Downsville, and then have wraparound daycare, maybe a half-time, which might increase, because there might be some people that want kindergartners, they don't want them to be there all day, maybe they want them just there half-time. That's an idea, not my idea. A constituent talked to me about that. I hear all of you. I can't imagine just closing a school. It's just so hard for me to believe. And I've had 40 years of education. I'm retired, all the way from pre-K all the way through post-secondary. Plus, I was a counselor. And I know the ramifications of kids. And yes, kids are resilient. But, and if the board does vote to close Downsville, I'm with Abe and with the others that we study this and make sure that we come up with a good plan. The building is in great shape. We don't need to sell it. I think we've got plenty of options out there. And again, we've got a whole bunch of people out here who have ideas and would like to be on committees to help. And I think it's very crucial, if that does happen, that we use the people from this community that have already spoke up and said they would like to help. And I guess with that, that's all I got to say. Thank you.
I have a follow-up question kind of for Michelle. Well, I wanted your expertise on this. If we keep Downsville open, it seems likely that it would be essentially all teachers within their first 5 years, which when I started teaching, people told me, you don't know what you're doing till year 4, and I thought that was crazy, and then I realized it's exactly true. Years 1, 2, and 3 don't count. But anyways, new teachers, and so I'm curious about like the mentor aspect. If we decide to keep it open, we have a lot of reasons to, like from the community. What would it look like if we created another position that was someone who had experience that could be there on site, that would be able to, that's not necessary. Let me finish, that will distract me. Like, do you think that that is the type of support that might be valid for those early teachers? Like if we had someone in there as well?
We have district coaches. They're not on site.
I mean,
It's-
yeah.
So
like
they
we
can
know this year would be tough.
Mhm.
So what would it look like to add one? Because we know this school is like, on paper, there are a lot of reasons to close it down. But we know that people are not paper and the community is not paper. And like, I'm curious if you, or anyone, this isn't just for Michelle, it's because you sparked this idea. What that could look like if we were gonna try to keep it open.
If Brian wanted to chime in too.
Yeah.
Fine.
Do you want to go or do you want me to go?
Well, I could, I didn't see this question coming, so it's not prepared, but initially what I'm thinking is, what are the things that a new teacher needs the most of? And in, year 1 is very different because it's everything. Year 2, 3, it turns into very deep and into curriculum and planning and communicating with families and all of those details. So some of those things you could have one person in this building doing that, but is there gonna be someone that knows all of the curriculum for every grade level, K-5? And Act 20, math, reading, social science? I want to say, yeah, that's a great idea. Like, that's what my heart wants to say, but it's not what my head's saying. This is why so many teachers are leaving our field. The percent of educators that leave in their first 5 years is just astronomical, and I don't have it off the top of my head, but it's just, this career has changed drastically in the last 10, 15 years. And what our new teachers need is different than what they needed 15 years ago.
And I would say Michelle pretty much hit it on the head. Our principals do a great job being instructional leaders when they're balancing everything else. So Ms. Lee would be here to help with the new teachers. I do think more than Ms. Lee would be needed for that many new teachers. But the other thing is that, like Michelle said, everything is so prescriptive now for each grade level, especially with the Act 10 reading, but even other things, that to have one person, whether it be the principal or an assistant principal or an instructional coach, to have one person that would not replicate for a new teacher what it's like to have a team of 3rd grade teachers or 1st grade teachers or whatever grade level it is. Now, I realize we're talking about possibilities, and if we're willing to spend whatever it takes and we're willing to, lower our standards for the type of teacher that we hire, maybe not have the credentials or the experiences, I think that's a possibility. I don't think it's a good possibility. It's certainly not something I can recommend. But, you know,
Does it
this,
sound like that's what I was asking for?
I think so.
To lower the standards of
No.
the teachers?
No, but I'm saying to even hire them, I think we would have to do that. You know, we just did a whole round of interviews and it's tough. But it is possible. I don't want people walk out of here and say, oh, there was no possible way they could find enough adults to keep Downsville open. That's not true. But if we want to have a high-quality educational experience for our kids, then I stand by the recommendation.
I would like to say that I really like her idea. I really like Dominique's idea about bringing somebody in if at all possible to do that. And maybe it would take 2 people. But I really appreciate Stacy as the principal here keeping the school open, and especially during this tough times of all this turmoil of whether it's going to stay open or stay closed and all that kind of stuff. I think she deserves some sort of commendation for that. But I feel confident in her, and if she had somebody else with her, I feel like they could make this school stay open and be a great school. And that's all I have to say.
I do not disagree with that. I think I feel like with all of the dominoes that have come down that we didn't even expect, all of those moving gears and balancing that with what our kids deserve and what our staff deserves, I feel I have no, this is tearing me apart, but I have no wish to see this building shut down, put the closed sign on it and call it done. None. I think it takes planning and research and grants and make this building something so extraordinary that teachers are clamoring to transfer here, that we are drawing kids from Elk Mound and Durand, sorry, because I find them on TV, sorry, Elk Mound and Durand, but I think some of our in-town families will want to send their kids here if we really think outside of the box and think big and dream big and with all of the support, and I really think we would do something innovative in this building.
I don't disagree with you, Michelle. And if the majority of the board decides that Downsville isn't going to stay open, I would hope that would be a plan going forward.
I think one aspect of the recommendation about kind of bringing in bringing in entirely new staff, and really do mean entirely, right? It's all the classroom teachers, the interventionists, et cetera, as fresh hires with no classroom, no professional classroom experience, and having a district, then also hiring a district mentor to manage them. That concerns me because it sounds like an experiment with a low probability of success. And we have great teachers and schools in the Menomonie area that do have capacity and space and have that have the tight-knit communities that can draw people in. It's not, the choice is not keep Downsville open or throw children to the wind. The choice is staff Downsville with what are likely poor quality, or say inexperienced staff, with what's probably insufficient mentoring, versus bring them into schools that are functioning very well, that have established teams, that have established senior staff, and are ready to embrace them and bring them in. So to me, the risky thing is not, the riskiest case for the kid, the kid in kindergarten who's learning to read, right, is to get that, the risky thing is to have that kid with an entirely new team who has not done that before versus, go through that process with actually, the teachers we're talking about, the teachers that the kids in this room love, many of them are going to be in town, right? Those great teachers we love who built this community, many of them will be at Oaklawn or River Heights or somewhere else. And that's where they're going to be sharing that same experience with kids. And we know that's going to work with kids. So I feel like there's things we could do to scrape by, but I don't want the kindergarten year of a kid or the first or second or fourth or fifth grade year of a kid to be an experiment with inexperienced staff when we know we have a good place for them that has capacity, that has great staff, that has established support networks, that has after-school activities, that has all the things we expect out of our education. I think is actually the safer and more supportive route is to, until whatever redesign happens, to bring those kids into a system that we know works.
Administration drove those teachers to leave.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'm not going to answer that, but can I speak about the enrollment?
Drove them to leave. True.
Are there board members who haven't had a chance to speak yet that have questions or things you would want to bring up? Yeah, go ahead.
I'd like to just share from a very personal level that, well, first of all, for those that commented about the decision was already made, and I've heard that 2-3 weeks ago, couldn't be further from the truth for me. It's been back and forth and back and forth. I've made my decision several times in opposite directions. And so I just wanted to point that out. In an effort to look at the pros of keeping it open and the cons of closing it, I've made a long list, and I've looked at that list, I've revised that list, I've talked to lots of people, made further additions to the list, and it has been terribly difficult. My effort was to find a compromise between the two sides. And I think that we've heard of a potential compromise. I think that Michelle did a great job of bringing that out. And I've looked at other compromises that probably would not work. I just want to close by saying that I've heard about the great education that some of you received, and your kids and your grandkids at Downsville. I want to tell you that I had 3 kids at River Heights, and I wouldn't trade their education for anything. It was tremendous. So it's not like they're going to a bad spot.
Thank you.
You created the shortage by lying. Fix it. Do the right thing.
There have been questions about capacity at the schools. Do you want to address that right now?
Sure. And I get that people are scared about sending children to a different school. And I know that there's concerns from the past about schools being closed and then remodeling shortly after because there wasn't space. So we have done analysis to look at our class sizes and our space.
Museums are high.
And right now we are operating with enough room, even if Downsville closes for next year, and we keep class size at the average of the class size guidelines. So not going to the top, but at the average of the class size guidelines, there still is room for 139 students in the other 4 schools. If the class size guidelines, or if the class sizes go to the upper end of those class size guidelines, which I know is still under 30 kids, even for 5th grade, there's room for 387 more students in the other 4 schools. So there is room for this to happen if the board decides to close.
I don't think the people are scared. I think they love the school and question your numbers.
At this stage in the agenda, the board is unable to have a back and forth discussion with community members. I am sorry, that's not something we can do right now. Do board members have questions or commentary? In response to what Joe just laid out, or anything else?
I do. I just want to say it's a year from now, we're going to look back and have a much clearer idea of what we should have done on all ends. And so if it was a question of anybody in this community proving how much they love this school, it would stay open forever. Because that's so clear, you can feel it in the air, in this room, and in the school, and in this town. And so that has never been what is in doubt. That's not what is in question tonight. It's just which things are each of us prepared to risk, and how much are we willing to risk? And that's going to be a different calculation for everybody. But I do know, I was in the same boat as Dale. I have gone back and forth on this, and I've stayed up late at night, and I've cried a lot. But I know that you've all done the same thing. And so me standing up here and saying that doesn't mean as much as the fact that you all have. But I want you to know, whatever decision we make, there were ideas. We were constantly calling, being like, can we follow up on this? What do those numbers look like? Could we pull this? We're not at this point for a lack of care, for a lack of creativity. So whatever happens, I hope that we can, if the school stays open, make a lot of work to rally around this and make it work. And if the school closes, we're still going to need that energy to figure out what happens next and make the best educational experience for the kids, but also make sure that this is a community that those things stay true of, that they have memories of being here as a community that aren't just based in these four walls. So I appreciate all of you being here tonight, and all of the emails and all of the phone calls. If it feels like the decision was already made, it really wasn't. At least for me.
I want to echo what Amber just said. I think, the last 2.5 months, this has been an almost constant conversation and ongoing. There is not a member of this board who this hasn't weighed heavily on, who hasn't been considering this. When we first started the conversation about the small kindergarten enrollment, to a member, this board said, find them, get them here. We have, this board has, as a group, I think in a very united voice, asked our administration to find ways to make this work and to keep the school open. I'm obviously, many of you know me, I'm a Downsville mom. I had one child who graduated, he did K-5 here, and a second son who's still here. I've been a member of the PTC, I've been here. And this is a very, obviously, in addition to a decision that we have to sort through as a board who's been elected to represent the entire community and consider the needs of the district. This has been something I'm struggling with as a mom, and wanting what's best for my own child, wanting what's best for all of his classmates and all of the people who have been part of our community. I want folks to know that this has been considered, this has been talked over. And so whatever happens tonight, I think either way this vote goes, I think the next step for this district is to start thinking about what happens here next year. Because if there is a Band-Aid, or if there is a solution that allows us to keep the district or the school open, we still need to think about the future. And we still need to think about what are the potential programs. The conversations about specialized programs, magnet programs, 4K site, I think all of these things deserve quite a bit of attention. And I would not want for any of those things to be rushed either. So I do want to just echo what Amber and Dale have said. There has not been a night, a day that this hasn't been on the minds of all 9 of us for the last 2.5 months.
Along those lines, if the board does vote to close the school, we will immediately begin transitioning to planning. We will be soliciting interest in anybody interested in being on a planning committee. And that'll go out through district channels. At the same time, I recognize that there may be people here that aren't necessarily on all the district channels. So if you're here and you have interest, if you want to leave your name with me or Jenny after the meeting, or if you want to leave it with the principal, Stacy Lee, on your way out, especially if you can't stay for the whole meeting, you are absolutely encouraged to do that. Otherwise, there will be opportunities through the district channels if the board votes to close the school.
And honestly, even if it doesn't, we probably still want to pursue those committees, yeah.
Additional questions or discussion?
There was something mentioned in one of the community comments about district boundaries. And I know that Dr. Sadowski and Menomonie Transport had looked very carefully over the winter at if it's possible to move the boundaries between the middle schools internally, or between the elementary schools internally. I don't know if you want to summarize what you found in that study. I know it was back that was December, I think.
Well, yeah, actually it's earlier than that. Tony has been working with Tom Krieger, and Tom is here from Menomonie Transportation. And Tom, I know that you spoke at the parent meeting that we had, but would you mind just maybe, stepping up and just, again, kind of summarizing what it is that we've been looking at over and over and over?
Again, Menomonie Transportation is a private company. We're not part of the school district. We're a private contractor. We contract to do what the district tells us to do. Okay? We were told to investigate to see what the boundaries could look like if Downsville School closed. Okay? I got a map.
Actually, Tom, I think the question was actually different. The question was more earlier, like last year, you'd looked at if, say, the boundary between Downsville and Oak Lawn could shift to pull more students down south.
Okay, if I understand the question correctly, then if we could have pulled more students from the Oak Lawn zone?
And River Heights.
Yeah, like where those
River Heights. That could be done, but you would have to virtually take students who are very close to the community, very close to the school of Downsville. Right now, we use basically County Road J as the dividing line. Those of you that know County Road J, south of J is Downsville. Just on the other side of J is Oak Lawn. It's a small pocket of students that would be in there. There's just not a lot of students. All of the new housing is coming in closer to Oak Lawn. If we tried to take students from the community of River Heights, we're already right by the roller rink, okay, as the boundary line. Those that are south of the roller rink are here at Downsville. Those north go to River Heights. If we pull students from there, that again is very close to River Heights, and it's a small pocket of students in the Irvington area. So I'm not sure if I'm answering your question though.
So Tom, I think what Abe was getting at was, for years we've been trying to find out where we could move those boundaries if we wanted to try to get more enrollment down here. And
the students just don't exist. We'd have to virtually go almost into Oak Lawn's backyard and almost into River Heights' backyard, and that still wouldn't bring very many students out. We have and always have been willing to transport any student from the south side of Menomonie to come out here if they had a desire to attend Downsville School. We could have buses leave the high school at 7:20 and pick up a few pockets around the neighborhoods of both Oak Lawn and River Heights and bring them down, but no one has ever stepped forward and requested that service.
Thank you.
Another detail of that, thank you. The other detail of that question was about the boundary with with Durand. That's, my understanding is that's essentially out of our control.
Correct.
Because that's a statewide districting question.
Correct. That boundary really would be governed by a whole different process, which is very complicated, and Durand would have to agree to give up land. That is very rare. Typically, especially now with open enrollment in the state of Wisconsin, if there are families that live in Durand that want to come here, they would open enroll. And we have had that situation occur, both in and out.
Yeah.
Additional questions or discussion? All right. Should we vote? Motion passes with 6 yes votes.
We can see it from back here. Can you read it out?
Yeah, sorry, there's 6 yes and 3 no votes. Which do you want? Amy Riddle Swanson, Dominique Stewart, and myself. Amy Riddle Swanson, Dominique Stewart, and myself.
And what?
Those, and the next item on our agenda is related. We have an action to approve new elementary attendance areas. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved, Abe.
Second. I'm going to hold for a minute or two. Thanks, everybody, for being here tonight. All right, I'm sorry. Motion by Abe, was there a second? By Michelle. On elementary attendance areas. And so this is a matter of some urgency. We would approve elementary attendance areas, and folks who are coming from Downsville would have an expedited window for making a request for a change for our new elementary attendance boundaries. So I assume it's preferred that we pass this tonight, correct?
Yeah, we want to give families a time to plan and then make expedited requests for the in-district transfers if that's what they want to do.
Do folks have questions about the boundaries or about the process here? And again, thanks, Tom, for being here. We are able to ask him questions if we've got them about the specifics of the boundaries in that decision.
Just to clarify, families would have a choice to pick something else in an expedited process if they...
Yes.
And that would include transportation. So again, for Downsville families.
Yeah, transportation when possible. And
Okay.
Tom went through the bus routes at the parent meeting.
Mhm.
So there's multiple options, but do you want Tom to explain it?
No,
Okay, we're good, Tom, thanks.
thank you.
Or does anyone else want Tom to explain it or have questions for Tom or questions for Joe?
So just to clarify, Amber asked the question, they could choose where they wanted to go? The students can choose?
So students will be assigned to a new elementary boundary,
Okay,
a new elementary attendance area.
okay,
There'll be an expedited request process where they can request to go to a different school, just like we already have in our
Okay.
school district.
mhm,
The big difference is that typically in-district transfer requests, transportation is very limited. And parents take on the responsibility of transportation, when they request to have their child placed at a school that's not in their home elementary attendance boundary. But Tom explained it really well at the parent meeting that the way the buses are coming through Downsville in this area, there are multiple options for the bus routes and people to be bused, especially between River Heights and Oaklawn or River Heights and Knapp.
Okay.
Now, if someone's in the Oaklawn zone and they want to go to Knapp, that one might be more complicated, or vice versa. Is there anything you want to add to that, Tom?
No, just a quick in a nutshell, those that are up to the farthest west, up in that Weston area and up above the Irvington Hill farther west on D, they will have very limited choices. They're pretty much going to have to go to Knapp. Okay?
Or provide their own transportation.
Or provide their own transportation.
Yeah.
Starting coming down D and swinging all the way almost to the eastern side of the district, okay, we should be able to bring the buses in and drop in the morning at River Heights about 8:20 and drop at Oaklawn at 8:30, 8:35 with the same buses, and then at night leave the high school at 3:20, load at River Heights at 3:25, load at Oaklawn at 3:35, and then bring kids home into their area. So they should have options available.
And I assume when we're talking about the River Heights and Oaklawn, actually, did that boundary change from the original draft that we had seen, or is that, doesn't matter?
What's up for the board approval is the same that was shared at the parent meeting.
Okay, okay. When folks are closer to that boundary, I would assume there's going to be quite a bit of flexibility if they're into that Knapp, or I'm sorry, the Oaklawn versus River Heights line. Is that accurate?
Yes, if you're from the Irvington Hill east or from about the Dome Bean Farm or maybe a little further on the east side coming back to the west, you should have an option.
Okay.
Of River Heights or Oaklawn, assuming both of the schools, River Heights and Oaklawn, cooperate with us in allowing delivery at 8:20.
Oh, okay.
Things like that, which I'm assuming they will.
Are there other questions about these boundaries or discussion? I guess one thing that has come up is the question, I mean, there's not as many people here who might want to hear the answer, but in case folks are watching at home, there's been the question about bus ride times. Do you have a sense of what folks can expect in terms of those bus ride times?
Their morning pickup would be almost identical to what it is now, except for those who aren't riding the bus because they're in the community of Downsville. Okay, but those who are in the community of Downsville would probably get picked up about 8 o'clock in the morning and have a half-hour ride back into town, 20 minutes to River Heights, 35 over to Oaklawn.
Okay.
Okay, but the others would be almost identical to what their pickup time is now, between 7:40 and 8 o'clock.
Okay. That's really helpful to know. Thank you.
Thank you for your precision and understand, you have all these things so, so front of mind, it's amazing.
And the gray hair to go with it.
He could probably name every family in the whole district.
We won't ask you to do that tonight.
Oh, but I know where you live.
I know you do. All right, if there are no more questions or discussion, we can vote. And the motion passes unanimously. Finally, on our action agenda, our last item is the staffing plan. Entertain a motion to approve the 2025-26 staffing plan.
So moved.
Second. All right, motion by Amber, second by Michelle. And I want to be clear here, this is the staffing plan that we approved tonight is sort of like the maximum staffing plan. Based on tonight's vote, there may be tweaks to those numbers downward, but not to go above what is on our document tonight.
Right, and certainly the staffing plan will be adjusted down a little bit, although we are, again, adding extra sections in town. But you can see that this is a staffing plan that we feel will be needed in order to operate next year.
Are there questions or discussion?
I'd also like to point out that since last time, we have added some additional information at the bottom of the staffing plan. One of the things we've heard loud and clear from our staff is there needs to be additional support for the paraeducators. So Sam and the HR department, working with the building principals, have come up with a mentoring plan for those paraeducators, so that's included. And I also included a more detailed version as a separate document for your review as well. I think the other ones, oh, the Educator Risings is the other piece. And that's a student group we have, and they have checked all the boxes, and they've operated in a probationary status, and they're now being recommended by the high school administration as a new club with an advisor, the Educators Rising student activity.
A question about the paraeducator mentoring plan. Am I remembering correctly? And I apologize, I read a lot of words. This is something that has been piloted a little bit this past year, is that right? Or kind of practiced in some kind of informal way, or is it just brand new?
It's more informal, but we have, someone at each building that will kind of take the new para under their wing.
Mm-hmm.
We felt that it was important based on the feedback that we formalize that process better.
Great.
Since this is essentially a maximum staffing plan, speaking only for myself, but if it turns out that there is a downward revision, I personally would support kind of thinking about taking that FTE and contributing it back to the needs of paras. And if this is a maximum staffing plan you're comfortable with on a budgetary standpoint, and some category goes down for other reasons, then maybe we should allocate those resources into additional paras or assistants or so on.
That's good to know, and as we continue to get ready for next year, and the big question always is with special education, and do we have enough staff to meet all the mandated needs that are required? I'm sure Tony heard you loud and clear right there, as did everyone. We'll keep that in back of mind, but frankly, when we have those needs, we have brought those to the board. I can't remember a year where we haven't brought multiple staffing plan additions to the board. This year there might be a little more flexibility without having to come, but we will certainly bring those forward.
I really like the idea of the mentoring program for our paras, because every time we look at that report, we have lots of paras resigning that are only here a short time, or, and I know a lot of them have other reasons. Maybe they found a better paying job or went to school to be a teacher. But I think that's really helpful, because I think that will help our paraeducators maybe have more longevity with us.
Yeah.
And more consistency.
Right. I was just thinking that myself, that I think a year or so ago during an HR report, we were discussing different ways to keep retention with paras, and this seems like a fantastic proposed solution to that. So thank you for your work on that. Additional questions or discussion about the staffing plan? All right, seeing none, let's vote.
I think I just got out of board docs by accident. So I will say a voice vote, yes.
Okay.
Till I get back in.
I've had board docs continuously reloading for me all day, which has been a delightful experience. All right, so the motion passes unanimously.
Katie's willing to do her report at a later time if you'd like.
Okay.
She's fine with that.
Great. Thank you. So that concludes our action agenda. On to the discussion items. I guess as we move into the discussion agenda, There is a question about the annual technology department report. We have Katie, who has been sitting here with us, who sits here with us almost every meeting, who is, and I've just been informed, is willing to move that to our next meeting. Is that something folks would like? To the May meeting? Oh, okay, great, yeah. Is that something folks would like to move to our May meeting versus discussing here tonight? I think that will allow us all to give it better attention.
Yes.
Thank you for your patience and forbearance, Katie. Do we want to make an official motion to table that, or? Okay, it's a discussion item. So first item on our discussion agenda is the clerk's report from the spring election. Take it away, clerk.
All right. The Board of Canvassers met on April 8th, 2025. For clarity's sake, I was not on the Board of Canvassers this time because I was on the ballot. The Board of, the Board of Canvasser members were Jenny Mikesell, Lisa Keys, and Sydney Haberman, and there was one community member in attendance. And the Board of Canvassers determined that the candidates Rachel Henderson, Abe Smith, and Dominique Stewart had been duly elected to the school district for 3-year terms ending in April 2028. The end.
Great, thank you.
And I'd just like to mention to the board that the new terms begin the day of the next meeting, so 2 weeks from now, that's when the new 3-year terms begin. And oaths of office, did they get done tonight?
Yeah.
Okay, so everyone's all set with the oath of office and ready to go.
Yeah. All right, thank you very much, Dominique. Thank you, Jenny, and for the Board of Canvassers and their work. The next item on our discussion agenda is legislative advocacy. I am just now noticing that we do not have in board docs the dates for the upcoming Joint Finance Committee hearings.
I have them up.
Okay, wonderful. There are 2 upcoming in our side of the state. Do you want to recite them now?
Yes, on April 28th, there is a public hearing at Hayward High School. And on April 29th, which is the Tuesday after that Monday one that I just mentioned, is the one in Wausau.
And where is it in Wausau?
North Central Technical College Center for Health Sciences.
Okay, so as the state legislature's 2-year budget process is rolling, this is the Joint Finance Committee's hearings. They are only having 4 around the state this go around, which is less than typical, but those are the ones that are closest to us. Included in board docs is information from Wisconsin Association of School Boards, their legislative priorities. There's also some tips for testifying at those Joint Finance Committee meetings. And there is also I have not given full credit to our business director, Eric Nelson, who has created a document detailing the impacts to SDMA for special education reimbursement. Sorry, I blew over that. But this is relevant to those Joint Finance Committee hearings. I guess I will just say for folks who are interested, I know Abe and Dominique have both been to those Joint Finance Committee hearings in the past, have both testified.
I've also been to.
And so has Amy, great. So, and I have actually done it not as a school board member, so I need to get my credit this year. I would really encourage as many people as possible to try to attend one or both of those. If folks want to arrange carpools, I'm happy to talk about that. And if you have questions about it, these 3 would be the right place to go.
So notably, the April 28th, presumably in Hayward, we won't be able to do because we have a meeting that night.
Right. Unless we left early.
Unless we left really early.
Very early.
If you get there early enough and can testify soon, you can be on your way home.
Yeah. I remember 2 years ago, the line was very long, even if you got there early. This was in Eau Claire, and I think, what was the wait? Maybe 2.5 hours or something?
I think I signed up around 9 a.m. and spoke around 4:30.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
But if you don't go in person, they do have a form that you can send written statements to, which leads me to a question I had for the board. I'm interested in us as a board kind of creating something that we send together that is stamped. And then potentially something that we could share with the community members to also send to the legislators. From our WASB Day of Action, it seemed pretty clear, at least from the people we talked to, that the big push is, which, thank you, Eric, for this, is for the special education reimbursement. And that a lot of people are leaning towards 5%, which is pretty rough. And so I think the best thing we can do at this point is get as many voices we can pushing for that number to be higher. So I guess my question is like, oh, go ahead.
I just want to clarify, when you say 5%, you mean 5% higher than the current 33%, right?
Correct.
Okay, not
And
5%.
some sufficient, which means actually getting it rather than potentially it coming in lower.
Yes, right.
The Tony Deaver's budget is 60%.
Yes.
I don't think we're going to get there, but.
But I also think 5 is
Low.
Very low.
It's
Yep.
too low.
Right. So go ahead. So the proposal is, could we craft a statement that the board agrees on and kind of stamps as our own
Yes.
statement that could be shared, that each of us could share with our legislators, with the Joint Finance Committee, and that we could also share out to the community as something they could take and send in?
Are you talking about a board resolution?
Maybe.
Possibly, yeah, if
Am
that's the
I?
form it's used.
Well, it would be, I can't remember if we've ever made board resolutions since I've been on the board, maybe once or twice. But what I do remember is that we all have to agree, you know, to sign it, you know, or to send it. And I'm trying to think, what else? Lost my train of thought.
Sure.
That was kind of my thought, is that when it comes to school finance, even over the past 3 years, there is a lot of like different ideas about like how to fix it or what to advocate for. And it seems like everything's kind of converging on, we need more reimbursement for special ed. Like that seems like a thing that I'm hoping we would all align in. And I think it would be a good time to kind of move on that.
And I think our board would probably agree with that as a resolution. But, oh, I know what I was going to say. If you look at the sample resolutions that are sent, or that, like Dominique, you've been the delegate, and I've been the delegate in the past, you know how they are worded as a resolution, whereas, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. So,
I wonder, for it to be a board action, would we want to vote in a session on it? Is that right?
Yes.
So then, the timeline would imply, so they're taking comments through the 29th. Someone, presumably you, would draft a statement that would be on our agenda for the 28th. And at that point, we would vote on it to say this is something that we want to then have, you know, we would then send to the Joint Finance Committee the following day. And also maybe speak to, if those of us who are there, does that,
and then send
is
it
there any
out.
procedural thing wrong with that process?
Other than the fact that it could be difficult to get to a resolution to be approved in one sitting, but
I actually think with this, I mean, I think Dominique made a really good point that like a lot of
Right.
advocacy groups are really focusing on this special ed reimbursement. And if we decide to make it real simple, we could, as a board, use the information we have here, so thoughtfully prepared by our business services director, and make something fairly, I would think, I think that could be quick.
and if you have a board resolution to point to, each board member could still determine how they want to advocate on their own, referencing the resolution.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
And the community and other stakeholders.
Yeah.
And if the statement is simple,
Yes.
then we won't spend forever copy editing it in a meeting.
Another
It's my
idea.
middle name.
Another idea, although, you know, maybe I think it's more important, I think special ed reimbursement is much more important, but I also think that's way up there is the money that's going to private schools as well, the vouchers.
Yeah, I also think
Now,
that
you can take.
drafting this resolution would not prevent any of us from including additional commentary.
Yeah.
But it would be that this part of the commentary is what we all agreed on, and given the timeline, I do think. Does anyone have any concerns or objections to that process? Or, questions about it?
And I will be sharing my letter but frankly, it's not done yet.
Okay.
It's been all about tonight.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
I think I get this straight in my head, and then I get confused again when we get into a discussion about this. So I just want to make sure, this is different than talking about raising the floor.
Correct. That's the
Okay.
that's the low revenue ceiling.
Okay,
Yes.
that's the thing that I'm the most, like, not the most, but that's the thing that I would really want to advocate.
Is the low revenue limits.
Because it just doesn't even, it just defies logic and common sense that a child in Hudson would be getting $2,500 more per, than a child in Menomonie. That just doesn't,
Yeah.
and
I agree.
I don't feel that I was being heard when I went, and that is something that I was discussing.
By the legislature, not by us.
Yes.
Well, all of that is important, Michelle, and I agree with you 100%. But the reason I think about the special ed piece is because that will give us more money to go into special ed, which would free up money to help
For
other
general fund.
situations. in
Yeah,
our schools.
I understand too, but I just think that disparity within our own state, it's so huge. The gap's gigantic, and they're just,
Yeah, when I speak, that's definitely something I want to talk about. I do agree with Dominic that keeping if there's a board resolution, keeping it narrow and focused on what a chorus is saying, so that it's, what's the phrase, more wood behind fewer arrows, right?
yeah.
And then
Just
just
to
like,
keep it simple.
everybody
And it
said,
doesn't mean we can't still individually advocate for that. 'Cause
yeah, that's what I
I
was
agree
going to
with
try to
you.
say.
I just think the way human nature is, if we do want something better, that we have to pick one thing.
Yeah.
I agree.
And again, nothing in
Right.
doing this stops any of us from putting out whatever we want, whether it is spoken in person or to our legislators, or encouraging our friends and neighbors to reach out there. So I do want to just pay some attention to our special ed reimbursement. This is a very helpful document that gives us very concrete information about, where we are theoretically in the district. Talking about that some certain thing, which is a phrase I'm sure lots of us will come to delight in the coming weeks, right? Like what is supposed to happen, what is actually, and where we would get to if we were under, for example, the governor's proposed budget. And it's really stark what that implication is for this district. I mean, when we're talking about the amount of transfer right now, that's slightly more than, but really close to the amount that we were seeking in a referendum just over a year ago. That is a very, very powerful amount for this district. I'm really grateful that we have this very straightforward document. Is there anything you wanted to point out to us or tell us about that?
No, I think just the difference, the left column is the 33% what it should be at, the middle is what it's currently at, and actually the percentage is probably even closer to 29%.
Yeah.
And then the right is the governor's proposal, and just the amount that would be available for all students, not just special ed students, but this would help all students.
Yeah.
And just to say it out loud for any hasn't looked at the public documents, $7.7 million our school district spends on special education. We get $2.2 million, or that's what we're expecting for reimbursement. So you're talking $5 million that needs to be transferred out of the general fund to supplement the cost of special education services that are mandated. And that's what this whole discussion is about. If we could get an increase in state support of special education, that's less from the general fund that we would have to transfer out. So it would impact all students, all programming. And we love our special education programs. We have great special education programs. We do not want to see anything change with the special education programs. We want more funding for the special education programs because we know how important they are.
Just a brief observation. There might be a typo in the second column because the numbers would subtract a 5.5. So I know which, but just double check.
Okay, I will double.
Well, that's a good point. Any questions or discussion about this special education reimbursement report, about the intention to draft a board resolution, or about any other pieces related to legislative advocacy.
I will say that I really appreciate the SSA slide presentation that you did. That was great. I liked that.
Oh,
Was
the
in there?
WASBO presentation?
Yeah, the WASPO, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. That was really good. And then, also just to let you know, some of us are members of Wisconsin Public Education Network, and you get emails from them, and they have an actual link to the form that you can fill out if you want to send information to the Joint Finance Committee if you can't go in person.
I don't know if this is something that this board is interested in or not. Some districts around the state have joined Wisconsin Public Education Network as a district or as a board. That's now an option. I don't know if that's something we want to do or not, but I just want to, if other districts are doing that in this moment, so something to think about.
If we wanted to do that, would it be something that requires a policy change to our board memberships policy?
Yes.
Okay.
Is it difficult to do?
No.
No.
Just a first reading and a second reading?
Yeah. Yeah, we just have to agree
Gotcha.
on it. Sometimes that's the difficult part, but
Would you like us to research that and figure out the cost and everything?
sure.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
And, how do I say, what they, this sounds transactional, it is, but like what they offer as a
Right.
board
Right.
versus, what they already offer.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Oh, I see, like what it would mean
What does it
for
mean?
us.
Perks.
Yeah.
To be a member as a board, as opposed to each of us. I don't actually think there's individual membership. I think we're all just, or maybe there is, I don't know. Versus being individually involved as potentially 9 people. I think many of them are.
I think it would be a proactive move, especially with, we're waiting to hear back a couple weeks with how things are looking at the national level in terms of DEI and limiting that in our schools. And so if we can join a larger network for public education, that might show that we are being proactive and supporting all students.
Yeah. Agreed. Any other questions or discussion related to legislative advocacy? All right, seeing none, we will move on to items related to next meeting dates, board committees, and reports. There is no school April 18th and 21st. April 22nd is National Bus Driver Appreciation Day. Are we planning to go to the bus
Yeah,
garage?
I'll send a message out, and any board members that want to join me, we'll go over there and bring some donuts and recognize our bus drivers.
What time?
Usually it's right after the morning route, so I think around 8:30, 9 o'clock, somewhere around there. I'll double check and email the board.
For folks who haven't done that before.
Did you say 3:30 in the morning?
Yes.
No,
Yes.
no, when they get back from the morning routes. Not-
8:30.
Gotcha.
8:30, 9 o'clock, but Joe will send a confirmation of the time. Totally optional, but a nice way to appreciate our bus drivers. The Strategic Planning Steering Committee meets on April 23rd at the ASC. There is a WASB new school board member gathering on April 24th. As we have no new school board members, I don't know how much of that's of interest, but that is open to anybody. So if you joined in a previous year and weren't able to attend and want to go, it is definitely a valuable session. It is right here in Menomonie at Menomonie Middle School. April 26th is the prom grand march. Great, if folks want to see that at 7:30 at the high school auditorium. April 28th is our next meeting, and our regular board meeting will be preceded by a reorganization of the board meeting in which us re-elected members are officially seated.
24th is also a health and insurance committee meeting, if anybody's interested.
Thank you.
Sam and I will be there.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you for being on that. Questions or discussion related to items related to next meeting dates, board committees, and reports. Anything else? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, we stand adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for staying. Thank you to Brownsville staff for making this space available and being here so late into the night.
Oh.